Hello, everybody, and welcome today. I will start at meeting people, and I will hit the admit button, and we will have people joining us. Hi, everybody, and welcome. And thank you for your patience and understanding with building in a few minutes, just allowing everyone to join us and myself to press on the admit button. Um, Please feel free to use this time to just drop a link to your LinkedIn profile in the chat. Tell us where you're joining us today. Do a little bit of mix and mingle. Drop a few questions if there's a particular question on your mind for you joining us today. So we start to see familiar names. So this is in true Luxembourg and French tradition. Just telling everybody that this is a recorded event. The recording will be posted on Hacking HR Global's YouTube channel sometime in the near future. We are working against a flexible timeline. So whom do I recognize? Virginia, Mary, Mateusz. Just drop us a short note in the chat. Where are you joining us from? Maybe the link to your LinkedIn profile. And let's see who else is joining us. So just building in a few moments, allowing everyone to access the Zoom link. I hope everything was okay technically for you to join. Okay. So we have London, we have Luxembourg, we have South Africa, we have Denver, US. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. If you also want to drop questions that you want us to pick up and include on today's agenda, that would be amazing. I think more people will come.
Well, it's amazing how many people are joining us from the US. And if I think about the time difference, it's amazing to see.
Yes, it is. It is. It is pretty much a global topic. It does have a lot of, local manifestations, but it is definitely a global topic on everybody's mind. I remember very early on into the pandemic, I came across a quote of Brené Brown saying that this is a global exercise in vulnerability, and we should not be scary when we are scared.
It's definitely a global exercise, that's for sure, and one we've been sort of forced into, but I think one that was underway anyway. It was something we were going to face within whether it was 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. It was something that was ongoing anyway.
Yeah. So let's take one more minute, and then at 35 minutes past, we will just start with the introductions. I will keep admitting people into our conversation, and we will take it from there. So again, welcome everyone. It's a joy, it's a privilege to welcome you to the March 3rd event of Hacking HR Luxembourg and Friends. part of the Mental Health Awareness Month with Hacking HR. We are looking into the second pandemic, as the experts call the emotional toll that the pandemic will take on us all and our lives and our businesses. For the purpose of our conversation today, my name is Hacking HR, but in my everyday life, I am Minola Jacques. I am the lead of the Luxembourg chapter, also Bucharest. Hopefully more to come soon. Just briefly honoring our speakers' time today with going through the paragraph that they submitted for today's conversation. So I will read as you are listed on the banner. So there's no other order. So today we have Dana Moldoveanu Brandes with us. If you can just do the online wave, admitting some more people in the meantime. So Dana Moldoveanu Brandes, she's a coaching psychologist. And this is what she says: coaching psychology is my vocation. It is linked to my curiosity towards people and passion of understanding and accompanying people and their businesses in the process of change, of personal development, of finding meaning and purpose in their lives and at work. My role is to create a space for authentic connections with self and others, to help people bring balance in the complex setup of feelings, beliefs, experiences, and expectations. With an initial academic diploma in economics and innovation, I naturally transitioned later towards coaching and psychology with a specialization in applied positive psychology. With a lot of humor and respect, I encourage my clients to be brave and creative while constantly keeping an eye on mental health, balance, and life satisfaction. It's a joy having you with us, Dana, today. Scott Lyons. Dr. Scott Lyons is a learning and development enthusiast who is motivated by creating and collaborating with others. For the last 18 years, he has been a noteworthy leader in the higher education space, dedicated to inspiring lifelong learning and personal and professional success as a higher education administrator, educator, consultant, and coach. He's founder and chief consultant for Lyons Synergy Co., an organizational development and team synergy consultancy, and a founding team member of Curated Culture, a new thought leadership and professional coalition within the space of organizational culture. His free time is spent hiking, exploring food and nature with his family, and working on his black belt in silly dad jokes. Would you like to hear one? we can build one as a start into our conversation.
Sure.
Great joy and privilege to have you with us, Scott.
Thank you.
Cordelia Gaffar. She's the emotions opener transformation strategist, guiding leaders to use their darkest emotions to show up as courageous leaders. She's the founder of Replenish Me. In 2020, she released her new book, Detached Love, Transforming Your Heart so that you can transform your mind. Cordelia has won several awards, such as the Sexy Brilliant Leadership Award, Top National Influencer of 2020, inducted into the Global Library of Female Authors, and the Best Podcast Host for her Free to Be podcast, to name a few. She's also a multiple-time best-selling author. Even with all of her accolades, her biggest brag is being a homeschooling mom of 6 children. Thank you, Cordelia. Dennis Niedringhaus. Trilingual leadership coach with a lifelong interest in the Chinese language and culture, a never-ending journey of discovery. Fascinated by foreign languages in general, he says, I often turn my attention specifically to words which don't translate in other cultures. As an expatriation and professional development coach, I help my clients choose their own words and create or rewrite their own stories. I am a compulsive consumer of notebooks and colored pens and markers. Thank you for joining us today, Dennis. Deborah Hartung. Encouraging business and HR leaders to be unapologetically unique, Deborah is a leadership and culture change maker with 20 years experience in all things HR, based in Johannesburg, South Africa. She has a people-first approach to workplace transformation. She created the Dirk model of performance and culture development, and in her first book, Talent Liberation, Deborah offers an exciting alternative to traditional performance management and the annual performance appraisal. When she's not working to change the world of work one team at a time, Deborah spends as much time as possible taking her two children on adventures and exposing them to the comedy genius Dennis Seinfeld. Thank you, Deborah. Good to have you with us. Eric Sjögren. He calls himself a European management consultant, Monty Python aficionado, father, husband, food nerd, home cook. Not in this order. I've had many professional interests, but I particularly enjoy working with leadership assessment and development in unusual multicultural organizations. The weirder, the better, he said. Initially ventured into HR because I was annoyed at strategy not succeeding due to the human element, still hacking away at that. Well, thank you for joining our joint hacking efforts today, Eric. Last but not least, we're welcoming Stefan Weicherding-Roth. This is what he said. Once I wanted to fly high and steer aircraft, but then everything changed and I found my place in medicine. Always dedicated to the well-being of people, I mended bones, wounds, and physical ailments in the beginning until everything changed again. From then on, the focus even deeper in the well-being of people. It was more and more about mending the souls and the discovery of potentials in fellow human beings. Communication, motivation, personality development, and the strengthening of resilience are my passions. Privately, I am dedicated to my family, sports, and reading. I am in awe with the beauty and wonders of nature and believe in science. I recharge my batteries every day by walking with our dog. Thank you, Stefan, for accepting our invite to speak today. And let's get started into today's conversation. Let's kick it off with a bit of decluttering around the terms of mental health, well-being, and psychological safety. What do these words mean to you? And I will pass the mic in the order of your Zoom boxes on my screen, making sure that everyone has their say, and then we will build a conversation from there. So Scott, please take it away.
Hey, I get to go first. Well, it's wonderful to be here with you all today. I'll start off with talking more about well-being, and generally, for me, we have a term here in the US, HBIC, not always the most appropriate term, but for me, I like to use that term when talking about well-being, and that's really, we think about happiness, we think about balance, also integrity to me, which I think is most important in that. We have some consistency with regards to how we can be truly ourselves and feel comfortable, but then also a level of comfort. So I think, as we think about the connection between well-being, mental health, and then psychological safety, I think the one that we least have control over in our environments is a psychological safety. And so what I'm excited about today is the opportunity for us to give more control back to the organization and its members as we approach the conversation about psychological safety.
Thank you, Scott. Eric.
That's interesting. It's interesting, actually. I might just respond to what Scott said, because I hadn't heard of HBIC. And I was trying to listen for a word that I think is particularly important when considering all three of these aspects, and that is the word meaning and meaningfulness. And I think it's a theme that many of us have knew was there. I mean, it's something I believe one of these strategy consulting firms came up with a long time ago as something they would put forward. But having meaningful roles, both in your personal and professional lives, I think is something that people are increasingly aware of the importance of this, regardless which generation, regardless where you are in any kind of organization. I think meaningfulness is something that I hope we'll get to address today, that links these three things together.
Thank you very much, Eric. Dana.
Well, I will start with the mental health, because, for example, here in Luxembourg, when we have the mental health week, there are always discussions about burnout, depression, anxiety, which belong practically to the mental illness. So mental health and well-being are connected, specifically mental well-being, because then we talk about meaning, as Eric said, about purpose, about resilience, about positive emotions, about good relationships in life or at work. And all these terms are related to our mental health, our mental well-being. And a part of them, they will create this psychological safety we would like to introduce today.
Thank you very much, Dana. Dennis, how do these terms look like from your perspective?
Well, I'd like just to say on the overall topic of psychological safety, the one element that comes to mind most for me is self-expression. And there tend to be two levels or two types of barriers or obstacles. One is from people, especially from expatriates who come from a culture where giving your opinion or protesting is not acceptable. How do we encourage in a multicultural environment the ability for people to say, no, wait a minute, I really do need to get home. I've got something else, where, that is something that is culturally inappropriate for many people. And on the second level of that, I think there's I think we often overlook a language dynamic. We usually, in Luxembourg, for example, everyone speaks English in most multinational companies. It's kind of the Esperanto, but it is not a level playing field at all. So people who are competent in their profession, who can follow a Zoom call or a PowerPoint presentation in English, are not necessarily comfortable enough in English to actually speak up and say, wait a minute, I don't agree with where we're going with this topic. It's just a question of, are we really making efforts to be fully inclusive with people whose first language is not English?
Thank you, Dennis. Cordelia.
That's a brilliant point, Dennis. And actually, as I've been listening to my fellow panelists, I'm overwhelmingly hearing, like from my perspective, psychological safety is really about that delicate balance of how we show up between our professional self versus our social self, and the capability to really enculturate that in the workplace, especially with all the things that are going on for us as individuals working remotely, and all of the things that are just brewing in the world politically, and as far as our overall emotional well-being. And again, related to what Dita said, like our ability to voice that. How can we express ourselves, our professional selves, without erring on the side of showing up in our social self? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cordelia. So meaning and self-expression within a multicultural environment are already some themes that pop up. Deborah.
Oh, thank you so much. It's interesting what Cordelia just said around showing up as our social selves. For me, and a lot of the work that I do around, diversity, inclusion, belonging, psychological safety, my own challenges with mental health and well-being throughout my entire adult life. For me, what is so exciting about today and about this conversation is the opportunity that we have to really explore these topics. And I think what I'd like to really touch on is psychological safety. There's so many different definitions and so many people grappling to try and understand exactly what it is. And for me, it really is the absence of fear. So it's the absence of fear of speaking up, of, not being afraid to disagree, not being afraid to bring new ideas, even if they sound, completely way off base, not being afraid to bring your true self to work, not being afraid to remove that mask that we have been wearing for decades. And there's so much that we need to unlearn. Now that we work at home, and we're sitting in yoga pants and t-shirts and maybe not turning our cameras on, and the dogs are barking and the kids are running around, it is taking away that facade that coming into the office for the last 50 odd years started building up, that idea that you can leave your problems at the door, that you can somehow become someone different when you walk through the office doors. So for me, it's really, really exciting that we can start talking about the absence of that fear and dismantling all of those beliefs and those behaviors and those habits that actually keep us in this space where people don't feel safe to say that I'm not okay right now.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Stefan.
Yes, hi there. I'm seeing it more on a practical side because I'm an occupational doctor, functionally, and I'm just overwhelmed by all the speech that has already been taken place. I'm new in this media, and so I hope to give you some idea or some idea from my side and my aspects. So it's for me, mental health, of course, it's about emotion, it's about, psychological and social well-being. And so it has to do with the mind, it has to do with feeling, thinking, acting, emotions, which might take over your mindset, which might take over the way you behave. And it was already said. So it's something about communication that I think is important. It has to do something with self-awareness. Okay, if you talk about, I'm not afraid to say what I think. Okay, I'm not afraid to stand up for this and that. It takes energy, right? It takes trust. It might need time to grow in an environment, in a team, etc. This is what I can see from my perspective. And it's a lot about communication, really. How you communicate, not necessarily or what you communicate, but how you communicate, about the wording, about the tone, about mimics, and other aspects of nonverbal communication. And also in this international environment, it was said, okay, people not speaking English, coming from different continents, and we're meeting, and so we need to be careful and to work on our self-awareness. Okay, what is really going on? Thinking and understanding before you do something. This is something very, very important, I think, in this context. And for me, this well-being generally on the workplace, let's say, it includes for me, mental health and physical aspects. From my practical side, okay, it's about temperature, lighting, saying, okay, it's a nice environment I'm working at. I have a nice material, and it's a good organization. And this is a big and vast topic to talk about in another round. I think maybe it's an organization planning what's the best thing to do, or what are the positive aspects on this. And in this aspects, then it is important to say, okay, I have this self-awareness, and I know now how to relate to what's going on. What does that mean for me personally? And this might, give me power to take responsibility, to look at my resources, and then to have a potential to do what I want to do, and what I should do, actually. And we talked about meaningfulness, something very important. If this is not given, if you don't see it, if it's not given by the task you do, if it's not given by your leadership, it's not clear, then the motivation goes away eventually.
Thank you very much, all. Just picking up on the key highlights. So we talked about self-awareness. We talked about diversity and inclusion beyond the visual element. So diversity and inclusion at the level of different backgrounds, different expectations, different resilience levels, different experiences. Also picking up from the chat, keywords like belonging and even shame that come into the conversation. So my question to you is, how in your environment and in your experience, how has the pandemic reframed the conversation around mental health and well-being and psychological safety? We can do the counterclockwise approach now, which would mean that Deborah is starting this round of answers.
All right.
Thank you. I think what all of us have seen is that the pandemic has basically brought a spotlight onto all of these issues. And I think that it's highlighted, mental health, well-being, psychological safety, fear, shame, stigma, mental illness, all of those things. These are not new things. These are just things that we've been very bad at dealing with, especially at work. And I think now that everyone's working from home and there's this global pandemic and people are dying, people are sick, people are losing loved ones, they're losing jobs, they're losing hope. And I think what this has done is finally, and it's so sad that it had to take an event like this, but it has finally brought this very important topic to the forefront of the agenda where it has actually always belonged.
Could I just interject something it's really silly, but it's just a simple practical explanation for why I think maybe some of these things have taken more prominence as well, is that just like the rest of us, lots of senior leaders have also been in situations suddenly where they've struggled maybe with their mental well-being, suddenly being thrust into having to work from home, having to, like you said, hear the dogs, having to be in this situation. And maybe it's given them, they had awareness about mental health and well-being being key in the workplace, but the awareness has transformed maybe into a bit more literacy. They've been able to put more words on why this is important, and the fact that they've had some struggle with it themselves means that they might prioritize it a bit more in the future, I think.
I agree, Eric. It's a lot more visceral, even from the leadership perspective. I mean, grief is a real thing. And we used to compartmentalize grief to death, but now we found out there's grief, like as in loss of autonomy. Like, I don't have control over my dog barking. I don't have control over my wife, screaming at the kids in the background. It makes me look like a horrible dad, so all of a sudden they're human too. And just their responsibility to embrace that humanness and just say, look, I'm fallible, instead of still wanting to hold on to that mask. This is a real opportunity for everyone to unlearn the labels that we've given, right? Like, you're the dad, or you're the single mom, or it's like, now guess what? We're all human. We have blood, we have heartbeats, and we have problems.
Sure.
So yeah. And so now psychological safety means, just we have to face those things head on. Yeah.
If I can make a comment, because the question was, what has changed since COVID? And you can say on a very superficial or a very obvious level, people who are not working from home and are going into the office are wearing masks. But then I think, hundreds and millions of people have had to wear masks all their lives, just inside and outside in their own, in their own culture. So it's not, how can I say that? In a way, if I think of a lot of Asian people or Chinese people, they're actually comfortable having that mask in a way that mask protects them in a way. And maybe that's perhaps one reason why in so many Asian countries it wasn't. We'll never know to what extent, you know, the coronavirus traumatized people on a psychological level, but it seemed to be less jarring for them because these are cultures where people grow up with a social programming where they're accustomed, you know, to covering their own emotions and actually taking off the mask or being asked to take it off would be threatening. And I'm not talking about the paper mask, but I'm talking about the mask that people wear to protect their, you know, private lives.
Yeah,
I find very interesting that it's a bit of a paradoxical situation, because on one hand, working from home and on Zoom or Teams, our professional life and private life mixed together, the borders between the two lives were disappearing. But when we see each other face to face, either on the street or in the office, we have to put the mask. So there is a distance in the same time as a closeness. And in the working space, what I found that it was very interesting, especially in the people that they mainly work in offices, that they found out much more about their colleagues and their lives and their families and how they deal with that and their problems. But their managers, they didn't understand, at least in Luxembourg, with the people I've been working, how to deal with this situation, how to make them feel safe, how to engage them while working from home. And these were the major questions and the major discussions. There were many of the managers, they were simply not prepared to deal with such a change at this level, and how to deal with that.
I would agree, Donna. I think that you know, our direct managers, our middle managers, you know, certainly, you know, I've experienced are noting the empathy that they feel as they're learning more about their team members, right? Some of our team members are thriving being able to work from home, and that allows us to tap into their talents and their strengths in different ways. But are our managers prepared and supported to be able to adapt, and is there empowerment there? I work in higher education, and you know, how has the pandemic changed higher education? I think, you know, for a good amount of time, the attention was solely on our students, on our learners. And, you know, I know that in some organizations, our employees are home, you know, able to work remotely, but that is not the case in higher education, and where many of our students, campus is their home and they don't have other place to go. So we have residential staff, security, et cetera. And so it took a while and still many organizations, institutions working through that. 160, I saw a figure the other day, actually, 650,000 jobs were cut in higher education in the US since last February. And that's a 13% reduction. And so I'm finding that in our HR operations, they've been so overwhelmed with working with IT and preparing everyone to work from home that it's taken more of an organic effect with departments and repurposing roles within an institution to provide that well-being, the webinars, the wellness programs. Those have become more homegrown and have brought communities together. And I share that from the perspective of being one of those campuses that is actually closing this year due to impact and how that impacts the community. So, you know, very interesting, all the differences we see in different fields, industries.
Thank you, Scott. From an occupational health point of view, Stefan, how has this past year changed the conversations around you?
Yeah, so I'll go with all of you, all the panelists, what they said, it's all true. And actually what I see is we're all human, and all of a sudden we're struck, each and every one. And maybe there were people say, "Oh, you know, I'm so high, I'm so good, I'm never struck by this," but they've been all struck in one way or the other. So I think empathy, understanding, respect is something, some values which went up by all the people, and especially by the leadership. But at the same point, what I see, there is a lot of loss of orientation and control by all the people, all hierarchies, all departments, because it's out of their control, or at least they think they can't control it or partially control it. Also, they might, you know, take something over, and you know, this circle of concern and circle of influence, circle of control by Stephen Covey, and people can work with this to get back some of this control. But yes, more and more rising numbers in people who want to talk. Okay, so this is what we also do. We take care for the banking sector and for the tertiary sector in Luxembourg. So we have more and more numbers of people asking to get into a conversation. We are the first to talk to, and then we hand them over to our psychologist. So this is rising. People are afraid. At the same time, what we see, there are issues for the leadership because now they have the pressure to create money in this environment. Okay, and we know about the companies who are cutting jobs already. Okay, and it's clear, or not so clear, you know, for the employees. There's not a clear conversation. There's not a transparent conversation ongoing, foreseeing for the people. And of course, they lose control and orientation with this. This will be another fight for the people to say, okay, yes, I have to, you know, create money on one side, and on the other hand, I have this understanding, etc. So it's not an easy time for each and every one. So people might need more assistance through consultants, how to deal with it, how to manage a team which is a hybrid team, because there are some companies who let their people on the side, you know, half staff, for example, well and safe on the side, and then the other part of the team is at home. You know, how to deal with the people, how to communicate with masks. You know, think about nonverbal communication. Think about what we do right now. It's the 2D communication. Okay, I can't grab you, I can't smell you, I can't, you know, there's a loss of, yeah, there's a loss of communication. It's important to give guidance to let's say the companies, and to say, okay, look, there are people you can turn to, which can help you, which are there for you, to you know, to help you to sort it out a little bit more, to become calm a little bit more. And this is what we try to do from our side. But know that we are also only human beings, and you know, so talking about resilience, we always have to find our quiet time, you know, our retreat, and think about ourselves. What is our motivation? What is our objective? You know, what are my resources, etc. So we always have to be in this cycle to function well.
What I'm hearing is that this past year has pushed all of us to acknowledge quite a few elephants in the room. And
Exactly.
remote working is not just elephants in the boardrooms, but it's also elephants in our living rooms.
Absolutely.
And
Don't talk about my son like that.
Hey, she's talking about you, Eric. No, I'm
Oh,
just
me. But I'm in the office.
Yeah. And also, you know, hearing you, I guess that we would see quite a lot of conversations around reframing productivity and reframing job satisfaction, and talking about management for meaning and belonging versus management for timesheets. With these in mind, and moving away from the elephants, um, what key challenges do you see moving forward? Because this is definitely not the end.
I think, I don't know, I'll just jump in with a brief thing first. I think there's definitely, I think many of us are experiencing the challenge that there will be some sort of snapback effect, right? And go back to old habits. So lots of organizations, regardless if they're commercial or public sector organizations, will be redesigning work in some form, but lots of people will be going back to, I think, wanting to go back to some sort of normality as we had before. And I think that would be a missed opportunity, because I think one of the key things that we're discovering and learning, and that will be a challenge, is how to both design well-being into organizations as really something that's at the core of the organizations, while at the same time leading some quite large organizational transformation projects at the same time. At least that's one of the things we're facing with our clients. But what I think is really interesting about that challenge, and it'd be nice to hear what other people see, but there's actually quite a few underlying things which are really very similar between, let's say, leading a digital transformation program or leading some other change in an organization and wanting to design well-being into them, because they both require empathy, and heightened empathy, heightened understanding for what other people are going through, which I think we just agreed in a way has been accelerated by this. They require the right sort of talent matching. They require putting people in roles that are meaningful for them. So being really good at selecting and developing the right people in the right roles. They both require this. They both require the right technology, and that's perhaps a subject for a whole other discussion, but technology enabling well-being and psychological safety in the workplace, I think, is something that will be a real trend over the next few years. And they both require psychological safety, right? Anybody who's involved in transformation and change management, and Minola, I know you will definitely, that knows that it works if people also feel like they're able at all stages of the process to speak up and say, I'm not comfortable with this change. I don't understand this transition you're asking me to do. So both of these things, they kind of depend on the same thing. So if we're able to use the same tools that we were good at before, we can design well-being into new forms of organizations. And so I think it's a challenge, but it's also really an opportunity for us.
I wonder if a lot of people,
Dennis.
excuse me. Yeah, I wonder if a lot of people will get stuck making that transformation. In other words, for the people who've been suddenly thrust into online, Zoom, Teams, these online platform communications, what does it basically do? It flattens a social hierarchy. When 30 people appear on the screen, it's not immediately obvious, where the hierarchy is. And, the most important people, are not necessarily at the top of the screen and are not so it sort of forces an egalitarianism onto people that they're not quite comfortable with. And it also, as we've discussed before, it blurs work-life boundaries. I know that French people, for example, really attach a lot of importance to their private, personal, the quality of their private lives. They don't want other people in their kitchens seeing, their partner making toast. They feel that, people who've known each other for a very long time will still use titles with each other. And suddenly going back after this very, this online platform and this sort of flattening hierarchy is quite threatening to people, and many of them are not comfortable, with that. So, what will it be like if, let's say in the next year we find enough vaccines where the majority of people start going back into the office? How will they make that psychological transformation where, oh, now about my partner or my children or things that you would otherwise never have known about, and to be quite honestly, I would not have wanted you to know about,
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point, Dennis. I think what I've seen within my organization and within several, this has been an opportunity. The pandemic has been an opportunity too, because of change happening so fast with, how we're, what information we're receiving and how we need to change, and trying to avoid using all of the cliche terms of pivoting and, and new normal and all of that. I'm sure we could play bingo with all of those words, but what we find is that we've been able to bring in more of our team, because that's been the easiest way. We don't have time to go and type a memo and send it out to everyone. So we are communicating differently, and it has been an opportunity. So, but I think we'll see both. I think we'll see, two sides of a spectrum. We'll see some organizations that now managers feel more empowered to be able to be more adaptable in how they're meeting, and giving people, taking some leeway to let people work from home and whatnot. And then we're going to see a lot of organizations, they didn't clean up the office space since everyone left. And who wants to come home from traveling or being afar and come home to a messy home, right? And so heavy lifting was referenced before in the chat. Our organizations have a lot of heavy lifting to make sure when people return, they feel like it's a renovated home away from home. And if it's not, we're going to see a big talent drain. And that, I think, is going to be, some of what we'll see, as we move forward.
Scott.
Interesting.
Oh,
sorry, Cordelia.
Oh, Deborah. Okay. Well, I just want to say something real quick. I wasn't sure which order we are. So when you talk about talent drain, the thing that comes up for me is we've already seen that, right? Mm-hmm. How many we've had about, like in America anyway, 87% of women have left the workforce. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a major talent drain. Absolutely. And so how are we going to recoup that? I'm just wondering, like, if we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we came so far to just be pushed back 30 years. So I'm pretty sure Deborah might have been going to say something about that. So I'll let you just get to it.
Thanks, Cordelia. I was actually, and it's interesting that you referenced that example as well about how many women have left the workforce, especially in the US, and we're seeing that in the UK, but most countries aren't actually tracking those numbers, which is also, so it's going to take us a very long time to really get that data. But I actually also wanted to add something around that talent drain that we're talking about. And I saw on LinkedIn yesterday, someone posted, apparently the CEO of Goldman Sachs, can't wait for things to get back to how they were and wants everyone back in the office. And, this was shared kind of in the context of good luck with that, exactly. And when it blows up in your face, who are you going to blame? Probably HR. You're probably going to go to your CHRO and say, oh, they can't find talent. And, you were asking in terms of what do we see, the trends, the challenges, the opportunities. And I think what everyone is saying is that there's such a great opportunity for us to really, number one, let go of the things that weren't serving us. That whole get back to normal. Normal wasn't okay. That always on, the 60 to 80 hour work week, the burnout, the being too afraid to be, if you're an LGBTQ person, to be out at work or whatever it is, that wasn't okay. So number one, we have the opportunity to question and to redefine normal and to really bring humanity back into the workplace. We have the opportunity to really look at some of our old school things that we've been doing, especially in HR and leadership, in terms of talent management, succession planning, org design, how we design jobs, playing to people's strengths, instead of trying to performance manage them to improve on their weaknesses. We've got so many opportunities. And my fear as I sit here, and I'm so optimistic and so excited, my fear is that we're going to screw it up, that we're going to go back to profits first. We're going to go back to glorifying burnout. And I think our biggest risk, our biggest challenge is we're not very comfortable with human emotion. We never have been. And Cordelia, I just want to thank you on this panel in front of everyone. I've been going through a tough time the past couple of months, and part of it is because my family is relocating to the UK, and there's been travel bans and there's been holdups, and we sold our home and we're staying in an Airbnb, and everything is in limbo. And I've been having this crisis of, to an extent, this crisis of purpose and connecting with what is meaningful for me, because it feels like so much of that has been taken away. But Cordelia made me realize actually that what I'm feeling is grief. And whether I'm grieving for the autonomy and all the things that I can't control, whether I'm grieving for the woman that I used to be, and whether I'm afraid of, what waits for me on the other side of this journey, whatever it is. And I think just coming to that realization, and, you were talking about self-awareness earlier. I kind of think that I'm pretty self-aware, and I didn't see that. So, I think creating this space where we can have these conversations and where we can be vulnerable and human and learn from each other and share. If that's one thing that we take from this pandemic and this experience, and we move into whatever our next looks like, I think maybe there's hope for us.
You're very welcome, Deborah. Yeah, and that's, what I'm hearing you say really is that we have to release what's expected and accepted, and just restructure our whole lifestyle and the way we run our businesses, so that we have, by really recognizing what are our personal values and creating habits to support that. And then that will allow us to refresh our viewpoint going into the next normal. My dear friend, Sister Jenna, she's over the Americas, the national capital, Brahma Kumaris, she talks about the next normal. And so the next normal should be a rebirth of humanity, where we have deep listening and compassion. And I don't think it's so much of a leap, instead of having mindfulness rooms, just make that part of town halls. I've seen some major, I'm not going to name names, but there's like a large bank, and I guess it's a global bank also. And in their town halls, they leave a part of that meeting for mindfulness practices, where they just, do breath work as an organization. So, this is a really great opportunity.
Thank you, Cordelia. Dennis, you wanted to add something.
That's wonderful to hear. And I am, as an American, an optimist by nature. And I would love to say that this pandemic has served humanity and a purpose, and allowed us to turn a page. But I'm not that. But I do think there needs to be some kind of a dose of realism in terms of shifting from working at home and going back into a corporate environment. You don't change people's basic social values and social interactions so quickly or so easily. I love mindfulness meditation, and I think everyone would benefit tremendously from the practice of it. And it's so wonderful that corporations would encourage and give people the opportunity to do that kind of things. But, I would say in 80% of countries of the world, if you'd say, if management or human resources would actually offer people that possibility for strong cultural reasons, they would not do it, and they would not feel comfortable doing it. Because I think a lot of this, I think what we're going around, two circles here, are trust and vulnerability. And let's be very, very honest. In many countries and many cultures around the world, trust is really low. And that was before or after COVID. And so, talk about your feelings, suddenly, you're thrust into this proximity, and people are not going to, okay, well, now it's post-COVID. I don't, please don't take this the wrong way, Cordelia, because I'm fully in line with, I really want you know, I want the world and just to move forward. And I would love, really dearly love to see the birth of a new sense of awareness and a greater sense of freedom. But a lot of this is also culturally very relative.
But what I hear there, and what I know also from my clients, is that the biggest challenge still during COVID and after is that this knowledge and understanding of self and others that have been built to become an action plan and daily actions that will improve mental well-being at work or generally. And because you're talking about being practical, I really had the question, why not introducing the mental health into the health and safety regulation? So we have this regulation, you know, for constructions and so-called dangerous places to work, but is not included, or not so much in any case, and is not the main point of the mental health. So how we can introduce this mental health well-being in the health and safety regulations, and how we are going to apply them. I think this will be the entry point into maintaining and introducing this knowledge we gain, this amazing experience we had in unfortunate circumstances, but this is how it is. We learn also from very unfortunate circumstances, maybe even more than in happy times.
I think a really good practical illustration of that, you talked about introducing mental health in health and safety and so on, but one thing which is, I think, really important is that both managers and employees have a better vocabulary around mental health. Because, I mean, if you do your own thought experiment, when I say physical health, you think about something, you know, positive, an athlete or something, right? And as soon as you say mental health, you're usually thinking about something negative, like you mentioned before, illness, right? And people have difficulty putting words on how they actually feel, right? They say fine and so on. Whereas if you ask about physical health and you say, what happened? Are you in pain? People say yes, no. They express what kind of pain it is. I hurt my leg or something. It's much harder to answer the question, are you in pain? How are you feeling? When it's a mental thing. So just putting some practical steps in place to give managers and employees a vocabulary, a lexicon of this is how you can talk about this with your people. This is what to avoid. It's a good first step, I think, to get that going.
And this is where psychological safety comes in place, because the most difficult thing for a manager is to ask for help.
Yeah.
No matter if inside or from outside. And if he's not able to say, I don't know this, I need it, I cannot connect with my team, I cannot create trust, compassion, without going into the details of our private lives, simply creating accountability, for example, then psychological safety will give them the opportunity to say, listen, I know my stuff, but here I need help. And it's okay. It's okay for everyone. It's
without shame, as there was a good discussion in the chat before about shame and fear of, you know, losing face or something if you admit to certain things. That's key.
And
I saw you unmuting yourself. Yes.
So who is it, me or?
Yes, it's you.
Oh, okay, it's me. Okay, so just you know, picking up this mental health thing as let's say, because we are all into this much more physical assessment of risks at the workplace, and for Luxembourg, I can say yes, it is like this. Just know that there are some other countries, and then we're worldwide now. So this is would be great to share and great to hear. I'm German, okay, and I know I've never worked in Germany as an occupational doctor, but I know there is a law in a law base in Germany. So every company every year has to have an assessment on psychological risks for their company. Okay, and it's not about saying, okay, I'm in stress, I have a mental issue, I'm in a risk for a burnout, etc. It is all on the working conditions, okay, which make up, let's say, well-being at work. And there are some definitions for this. There is some evidence-based data for this, which exists in literature. How to set up a questionnaire like this and to send it out to people, because I think a big issue is that where we talk about the leaders, the managers, the top managers, etc. They just don't know what's going on in the company, as saying, okay, there are issues, etc. Because every manager wants to report the best, etc. And so might not talk about the issues that they're struggling with. So it's again about saying, okay, let's have an assessment on this. Let's hear, where are we right now, and what is it for my company? What could be an issue? What can we work with or on to make it better? Because there's a majority of people who have an issue or see an issue with certain working conditions, and then to focus on this. It was said that this well-being at work, it's not just one intervention, everything is fine, and not everything is fine for the rest of the year, for the rest of the decade, or etc. We are only humans, right? And so we will always fall into this pit of doing things wrong. It's human, right? But then we need to get up again and to see what went wrong, and then to analyze it, and then to do better next time. This is what resilience is about. But to have an assessment, I think this would be a great advantage. And there might be countries out there, I don't know how many countries in the world have it, an assessment on psychological issues at the workplace concerning working conditions that are well defined, to say they can create a problem. And when you see, okay, there are so and so many people, and you can put the threshold, if there's 60% saying, okay, that's a potential issue, then let's talk about it, okay, in the department, in the company, and make it a project and work on this. And so we have those, let's say, mosaic pieces that we have in the companies, right? And saying, okay, let's work on this, let's work on this. It's not saying, okay, let's work on the whole well-being. I think this is not possible. They're mosaic pieces. And they are put together in the end, and to have a certain, let's say, a certain level of well-being. It's okay now. It's better now, and so on.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Before we move forward, Scott, you wanted to add something on the topic of language, I believe.
Yeah, I thought, earlier, Eric and Dana referenced new vocabulary. And I think that there are some really good examples of how we've seen substantial change in cultures, in organizations. And a good little case study for that, if I can give some love to my leadership Rhode Island people, in the smallest state in the US, going from number 49 out of 50 states of the most engaged, as we look at their research, in 2015, the little state of Rhode Island was number 49 out of all of the 50 states with regards to employee engagement. And they wanted to be number one. And so they introduced, and I'll include a link here, they introduced the Gallup Strengths as a way to create vocabulary around a common language of talent and respecting of those talents and coaching through that. And in 1 year, they went to number one. Gallup was amazed by this and now is being approached to be thinking even from a country perspective, how is that possible? And so, for me, I think it's really important. The reality is it's close to like 83% of workers say they would be happier if they could work remotely. 72% share that they would that work flexibility is going to be very important for the future of HR. So our organizations are going to have to be thinking about how are they creating that vocabulary that allows the onboarding, the orientation, and leveraging people to show up as themselves is really important.
Thank you very much. I'm starting to be a bit mindful of time, so I will go straight to a question. Where lies or who bears the accountability for mental health, well-being, and psychological safety in our organizations? Yes, Dana.
We all bear that responsibility, all of us, once we step in our professional life, we are responsible for our own mental health and for the community, for our colleagues, or for the team members, for everyone. If everyone will be aware of that and will have some knowledge about what that means, I think we will all be okay at the end. This is my opinion in any case.
Thank you. Dennis.
Yeah, I think one question that comes to mind is how will we know I'm wondering to what extent will we be able post-COVID, and it's got to come at some point, we'll be actually able to flatten hierarchies, because it's all very well and good to have top management come in and do leadership training programs on vulnerability and mindfulness. But the question does it filter down? It may filter down in Rhode Island because you're in a more egalitarian social structure. But if you're in a country like France, for example, that loves hierarchy, that loves formality, there's a lot of psychological distance. How are you going to get all of these, management, wonderful concepts that we need to embrace to actually filter down? You can do LGBTQ training, for top levels of management. Oh yes, we've got to change our language. And these people mean well, and the people who train them mean well, and they want to do it, but it doesn't filter down to mid-level. It doesn't filter down to the factory floor. So, if the Zoom Teams phenomenon has temporarily flattened the hierarchy, when we go back to the office, and that social hierarchy is going to come back into play, then what kind of markers, or how do we set some kind of space or availability to make sure that some of these good habits that we've adapted will carry over so that we don't snap back, so that there really is a new normal?
Thank you, Dennis. Accountability, where does it lie in the organizations?
It's kind of funny because as I'm listening to Dennis, I'm thinking of another cultural barrier. For example, one of our clients, she went in and did a diversity training in an organization in Dubai, right? And what was she talking about? Gender. And as the guy that brought her in was introducing her, he was like, she's going to teach us how to be more sensitive with women, but just don't drive on the road with them. Okay, so yeah, I agree with Dana. It's 100% an individual accountability, because to Dennis's point, even if leadership, they do bring someone in for the leadership training, as humans, we have our own biases, and that filter is really the issue. We have that cultural filter no matter what. And so we have to individually bring the energy of curiosity. We have to bring the energy of courage to give voice to creating psychological safety by speaking up for our own psychological safety first, right? So if you do it, the person next to you is going to do it. And, it should be a ripple effect. Not sure how that would play out in France or Dubai, but, it's something to think about.
I just want to, because I liked your word energy. So in the moment each one of us knows what brings me energy and what takes energy from me. And where is that point where I say enough? I think there is where our accountability stays with each one of us, to know, that difference and to respect it in the field of organization as well.
I just would like to add something on this. Some people just don't know it until they are told it exists, those issues or those effects, or that what they say and how they say it might have a certain effect on certain people. And we talk about different cultures. I'm not an expert in culture and changes, etc. But I just see it, and it's like COVID brought something like it's just like a wake-up call. All of a sudden you are affected, and you're much more aware of what's going on with yourself, with your brain, etc. And it might bring some openness to your mind, saying, okay, yes, the person next to me, my subordinates, etc., they're struggling as well, blah blah blah. So and I go totally with all of you, and I'm sure you're all agree. You look in the mirror and who is responsible or who has the power to change those things. While we are talking, it's nice to talk, blah blah. It's good to have and write essays and books, but to act like the way we say it should be good, etc. I think this in the end shows, and this has a lot of energy, or gives a lot of energy to other people, and puts the focus on this, and where the focus goes, the energy goes. Be an example. I think this is a great way to bring change to, let's say, to culture, and it's not easy. And then of course, if you talk about France and about Dubai and about all the other countries in the world, it might be all kind of different. But start out for yourself, that's the first thing, and when you're clear about it for yourself, then go out. And it's not about being a disciple, just a missionary, or saying okay, repent, etc. No, okay. So act like it, be authentic. You talk about something, then act like it, and say, oh wow, and people say, okay, I'm so impressed, I'm looking up to this person, I'm she gives me so much energy, and gives me in the end maybe also the power or the energy to speak up. Okay, and to speak up and to say, okay, what the heck, what other people might think, I need to speak, I give myself voice, I let it out, etc. And I will see what the effect will be in the end.
This is a very, very inspiring point, Stefan, and thank you for bringing it up. Yesterday, something popped up on my social media feed, and it said, always speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. And I think that ties in very well into our conversation today.
Manola, if I may add to that, I think we've talked a lot at the individual level, but I think there's also, this concept of psychological safety at the group level too. And, this is a charge for our HR professionals on the call here, is because there is an opportunity with everything that you've been asked to now do and be prepared for with responding to this pandemic and helping the organization through, is a wonderful opportunity to be thinking as a group about what needs to change. What do we need to clarify with respect to how are we different when we move through this? And I think that there's a lot of power in the group. And so, and that I believe is truly where a lot of this action is. So there's this opportunity to be able to do some reflection and to be able to clarify, here's what resources, and we cannot let go of engagement and wellness. This needs to be a priority, and sharing that. So, I thought it was important for us to talk about that at the group level too.
I think that's the point at which HR can best challenge leaders as well, to show them what their roles can be, because obviously there is, even in very hierarchical organizations, there's definitely the element of role modeling, which is important. But HR can challenge leaders as well to have a more systemic view, and to understand that one actor who bears the accountability, as Minola asked us before, for well-being in the workplace is not an individual, but is the system. And humans can design the system in different ways, and that's our responsibility collectively as a group as well.
I'm wondering if there's
Denise,
I'm wondering if there's a way to make people in human resources, or maybe people above them who are the real decision makers, accountable, because I think there is a real problem of denial. We don't see, oh, we're good, we're good. Well, we really don't have serious intercultural differences here. Everyone speaks English, so we're okay. Actually, you think you're okay because half the people on on the Zoom call will nod and say, no, we don't have any questions. That's good. We agree. In Japan, people say yes, meaning I understand, but not that I agree. And I think we're really blind to what separates us. And I think on a cultural level, and I'm not even talking, Japanese working with the Russians, working with the Anglo-Saxons. I'm talking just on a corporate culture level. I think there's a denial that we're okay in our company. We don't have that problem with our corporate culture. That's not an issue here. Excuse me, but it is. And I think, how do we get these people to own up? Because there is a problem of denial.
Thank you, Dennis. Deborah, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I'd actually like to answer Dennis's question. And you ask, how do we get people to accept accountability? How do we get them to own up? And that's actually what I wrote my first book about, which is, for me, there's a missed opportunity. We have the tools within the workplace, and we've been using them all wrong. We have the performance management process, and we call people managers, but then we expect them to lead, but then we reward them for managing, for the micromanaging and the small things, not for the human things that we expect from leadership, in terms of enabling and encouraging and inspiring and all of those things. And for me, what I have found works with my clients, and the reason why I wrote the book and designed the model, is that until we start redefining high performance to include not only my productivity and my output and what I do, but also what environment I create and how others perceive me. So until our definition of good is not just that I'm good at my job, but that I'm also a really awesome person to work with and work for, right. Until we bring those two together, we're going to keep on missing the mark. So what we really need to do is, number one, strategically, at an executive level, we need to prioritize this, whether it's wellness, corporate culture, psychological safety, or all of them. We need to prioritize that, and then we need to include it in our performance management methodology, that you are measuring me, you are rating me, not just on what I do, but also how I do it, how I behave, how I create a safe space for everyone around me. And then again, we bring recognition and reward into it. We were talking earlier, I think Dana was saying about, we're all accountable for the wellness, and it's the only thing I can only control myself and how I respond and how I change and what I do. So, I think just bringing recognition and reward and aligning it with wellness. So in other words, starting to recognize and reward me for turning my phone and my computer off at 6 p.m. and starting to reward me, for becoming the best version of me. And I think Stefan was saying earlier on, I can't remember, maybe it was Eric, speaking of when we talk about, mental health and physical health, And when we talk wellness at work, a lot of people, you know, what's the idea of wellness? Oh, I need to look a certain way. You know, my body weight needs to be at a certain level. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. And I think we also need to start respecting that wellness for different people, balance for different people looks different.
Thank you, Deborah. That's a very valid point. I just read an article a few days back about how the old normal was a glorification of burnout, and how being tired and how being, you know, in a borderline mind fog was a badge of honor. I'm gonna say some of the most painful words today. We're 10 minutes before the end of this conversation. I can definitely see follow-up events on this topic. Um, so the last question, and please, if you can just put a key takeaway for the audience as we will go through the panel for one last time today. What is, from your perspective, the number one actionable step that you would recommend people here today to take starting tomorrow or Monday morning? We all tend to start new things on Monday morning. And then, you know, just finish it off with your key takeaway with a punchline. And I would do again the counterclockwise um, mic allocation. So Stefan, you get to go first. And you're on mute.
Yes, I need to unmute, clear. So yes, the first thing on Monday is to say thanks God I'm alive, you know, or I'm alive, you know, and just to recognize that you're alive, that you're a person, that you're functioning, you can breathe, you can hear your heart beating, you can look around and see something which might mean something to you. It could be a partner, it could be your kids, it could be an outside view of the landscape or whatever. So just do this and say I'm grateful. Okay, I'm alive and I'm able to do something. I can be a creator for my day, for my week, etc. And this is also my key takeaway message to say, hey. It's on us, you know, to say we can listen, and we can be depressed on all this, you know, this awful and you know, COVID stuff, and what it is doing to us, etc. But you know, try to find something positive, and we heard something positive today. You know, what a lot of things has changed, but it could be a chance, you know. Being in the pit, you know, it could be a chance, and see, let's find something, make something out of it, creative and positive, to change ourselves, to change the others, and to change our work life.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you. Cordelia.
Yeah, it's so perfectly, more perfectly aligned, Stefan, because I was going to say, start your day by thinking of what joy can I create today? And that just brings, what are the things that I'll have to do to create joy in my day? And, you know, going back to my point about giving voice by being courageous and speaking up for your own psychological safety, you know, being curious about the people in, you know, on your team. You know, how are you doing? Don't accept their I'm fine, right? How are you feeling? And really mean it, really care, really turn your body towards them, so that you can do that full body listening and have actual compassion for the person in front of you. And really just allow the, you know, this opportunity to bring a different energy, not only into your own day, but into your organization. You know, we often talk about the this, we have to wait until someone does something. But with each interaction, we can be an advocate for ourselves. We can be an advocate for somebody else. And, just do it. Action, put yourself into action. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Be the leader, right? Be the leader in your own life and show up that way in your organization.
Thank you, Cordelia. Dennis.
To pick up on what Cordelia said about curiosity, I think that is a concept that is doable even for people who are working in very hierarchical cultures where they very often don't have permission. People don't have permission to speak up. Managers don't have permission to be vulnerable and authentic. And I think if we can get to, if we can take a step towards a work environment we develop trust, then permission to be curious seems like a step in the right direction that seems doable almost whatever culture, whatever corporate culture or whatever country culture you're dealing with. So those would be my, how can we encourage a curiosity that isn't too compromising for anyone?
Thank you very much, Dennis. Dana.
Well, I think that this pandemic and the decisions they were taking, no matter what level, they were driven by fear, and they tried to create some sort of protection of people against the virus and other things. And the key here, so is to the question is how I can be brave. The other side of fear for me is courage, bravery, as Cordelia said as well. So I would invite everyone to think, why I do what I do and how this brings for me, for my team, for my organization, for my community, what this brings in the long term. So these are like the main questions. And also this whole discussion reminds me of this cartoon Monsters Incorporated. Maybe those who have kids, that the entire story was that they were producing energy from scaring children. At the end of the movie, they realized they can do much better by making them laugh. So this is, if we go towards well-being and psychological safety, profit and performance will follow and will be even better. So this shift we have to do by being brave.
Thank you very much, Dana. Thank you. With 2 minutes to go, we need to optimize punchlines and that hurt saying. Deborah.
I would like to invite everyone to normalize human behavior and emotion and stop being so afraid of it. And if I can quote Cordelia, something very profound, she said, let go of what is accepted and expected. So if we can all just drop those masks that we've been wearing for so long, not the physical face mask, the mask, the world will be better.
Thank you, Deborah. Eric.
Okay, in the interest of being brief then, the best thing you can do Monday morning for your personal well-being is to sleep longer, because we know very little exactly scientifically about well-being, but one thing we really do know is sleep, and exercise is really helpful. I don't practice that myself enough, but I'm just giving this for free. For organizations, I think the most important sort of one thing you can do, actually, apart from implementing a lexicon and an easier way to speak about mental health at work, is actually to start from the top down, making your leadership do 360 development-oriented 360 feedback exercises on Monday morning.
Thank you very much, Eric. And last but not least, Scott, you're closing up today's panel.
I would say 2 quick things. One, I would say something that Cordelia referenced really hit for me, and that is not just accepting how are you. And so I think, using different language, on Monday is using the word psychological safety. And, what does it mean for you? So going to a colleagues or asking and using your influence to be able to start the conversation about what should this feel like, what should be different as we start moving into the new normal, as we move forward, so that people are using that language. And second, clean up your mess because company's coming over. I think our organizations' physical spaces need to be ready to welcome people back. And so I think that's most important. I'm sure most of our homes right now, the only place it's clean is that's within the view of the camera, right? So I would add that. I think it's very important to roll out the welcome mat and welcome people back, and truly who they are.
Thank you very much, everyone. It is so sad that we ran out of time. I would consider it a huge privilege and joy to have you back for future events. Please stay tuned and check out the Hacking HR Global Conference next week. Keep in touch with people that were here today via LinkedIn and look out for the upcoming events. Thank you very much, everyone, today. And just be safe and take care of yourselves. Sleep more, pay attention to your words, pay attention to the words you use with yourselves and those around you.